The year is 2014. I was like 8 years old or something, I don't know. And the Godzilla franchise, one of the most influential franchises in all of history, had laid dormant without a full feature-length film for 10 years. Until Legendary Pictures released Godzilla 2014, the first good American Godzilla film, hence it becoming a huge success in the box office worldwide. It reignited people's interest in the iconic monster despite his less than 10 minutes of screen time in a 2-hour film. But I digress. Toho would soon announce their own revival of Japanese Godzilla to be released in the summer of 2016, with directors Shinji Higuchi and Hideaki Anno at the helm. The two of them have previously collaborated on the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion, and each of them have a long history in the entertainment industry, the roots of which being firmly ingrained in the tokusatsu genre. Higuchi would be in charge of the film's special effects, while co-directing alongside Anno, who would be writing the screenplay for the film. And thus was born a god incarnate, Shin Godzilla. It's a peaceful morning on Tokyo Bay as the Coast Guard are searching through a vessel with its owner nowhere to be found, when seemingly out of nowhere a huge pillar of steam erupts from the water, causing all kinds of damage to the surrounding infrastructure. This is where we're introduced to the Japanese government's Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Rando Yaguchi, as he and his fellow members of government are trying to tackle the emergence of a mysterious creature at the center of the eruption. Trying is certainly a way to put it, as they just jump from conference room to slightly larger conference room, just lightly debating about what they should do, more than, you know, actually, God forbid, take action. Now, I know this may sound pretty dry and boring, but the entire film has this incredibly slick pacing with some really frantic camera angles, as well as showing every character, important or not, title, rank, and, you know, why not just throw in their home address for good measure? Seriously, I think it works to enhance the direness and the stress of the current crisis at hand in order to, you know, keep the audience engaged. But now is no time to talk, as the creature is now waddling its way down a river, laying waste to anything in its path. But thankfully, due to its biology and fin-like feet, it is physiologically impossible for it to climb onto land. It did what? The creature slowly hobbles along, barely able to hold up its own weight, causing destruction and panic as toxic blood oozes from its gills. You may say there's not a thought behind those eyes, and I would agree. Every step, every movement from this creature feels almost instinctual, irrational, or aggravated, as if it's in pain. Just a thought, just a little bubby thought. It's overall a really weird but really cool and unique design, in my opinion. And would you believe me if I said this thing had an extremely dedicated fan base in Japan with loads of merchandise dedicated to it? Of course you would. They even gave him a cute little nickname, Kamata-kun. You know, after the city he tramples over. Anyways, all of this happens while the government is still debating on what action to take. Something would be better than nothing at this point, guys. I'm just saying. Hey, don't mind me, I'm just saying. Suddenly, the creature stops in its tracks as it starts to grow and change, as if its skin is shifting and melting. Finally, the creature lets out a harrowing roar. It has assumed its third form. After a failed intervention with the self-defense force, the creature grows red hot and then quickly rushes back to sea. The devastation from the event is immense, and since those bigwigs in office took too long to do anything about it, Higuchi assembles his own team to fight back against the creature, were it to ever come back ashore again. But that'll never happen, right? The team figures out that the creature leaves radiation in its wake, meaning in order to sustain its energy, it utilizes some form of nuclear fission. At the same time, Higuchi digs up some information on Goro Maki, a disgraced biologist who recently went missing. His yacht, the very same vessel from the beginning of the movie, was found abandoned, Maki himself having been believed to have taken his own life. In return for this info, an envoy sent by the US President, Kyoko and Patterson, gives Higuchi and his team some documents that Maki wrote about the creature, while he was studying a case of mysterious radioactive waste dumping in the Pacific Ocean. This info could be exactly what they need to start formulating a plan at stopping this creature. But what Higuchi reads first is a name. A name derived from the dialect of Maki's home on the Oda Islands. God incarnate. Godzilla. Godzilla resurfaces south of Tokyo and makes his way ashore, this time having evolved into its fourth form. It's nearly doubled in size, with an enormous tail following behind as a red-hot glow peers through its blackened skin. Alongside both its beady eyes and mangled teeth provide a truly horrific creature befitting the title of monster. It's seriously my favorite Godzilla design out of his 70-year history. And I love how it calls back to the original 1954 design while still being a completely unique and twisted take on the classic character. This is also the first time that Godzilla's been completely portrayed in CGI. Well, outside of the American films. Yet despite that, they still use mocap and physical animatronics on occasion to emulate the suitmation from the earlier films. I think that really helps the monster sequences feel tactile, if that makes sense. Unlike the MonsterVerse movies, which I love by the way, most of which though feel like slamming a bunch of action figures together. The way Godzilla's been portrayed here, I feel like it allows the film to hold on to those classic tokusatsu roots and feel more grounded. Well, as grounded as a giant monster attacking Tokyo can get, yeah. That being said, the events of this film may be a bit more based in reality than you think. Not the literal monster part, of course, but rather the devastation itself. Before I get into that though, firstly, Godzilla has never been a stranger to metaphors or relating to real-world events. The original 1954 Godzilla film was spawned from the nuclear paranoia of post-war Japan. The film was released not even a decade after the first two atomic bombings that left irreversible scars on the country and its people. At that time, the rate of nuclear testing took off, especially so in the Pacific, with major tests like Castle Bravo still prying open those wounds from the war. It's heavily implied in the film that Godzilla was not only awakened by those tests, but perhaps a product of them. Producer Tomoyuki Tanaka even saying, mankind had made the bomb, and now nature was going to take revenge on mankind. Going back to Shin Godzilla, the events of this film are supposed to mirror that of the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, tsunami, and the following Fukushima Daiichi nuclear reactor meltdown. Many shots of the destruction and devastation in the film look as if they were lifted directly from the TV coverage of the original disaster. Mountains of debris being pushed along urban riverbanks, mass hysteria and panic in the streets, along with aerial footage of flattened buildings and infrastructure, echoes much of the imagery of the disaster. And if it wasn't already clear, this film is a huge political satire. Another side of the movie that I love and will most definitely keep it relevant for years to come, I can tell you that much. It heavily criticizes the bureaucratic Japanese government and their less than efficient approach at tackling an ongoing crisis, showing the audience that the real threat to our safety is not the giant monster terrorizing the town, or the very forces of nature of our planet that threaten to smite us with each passing day. No. It's those freaking ancient fossils in office right now. I tell you what. God. Back to the crisis at hand. All military efforts have been ineffective as Godzilla crosses into central Tokyo. Evacuations are ordered as US bombers close in on Godzilla's location. Some of the shots in this scene are just immaculate. Something about seeing Godzilla wreaking havoc at dusk, that faint red glow from his body, along with the orange glow of the twilight, is just as magical as it is haunting. Finally, bombs are dropped, and we actually have a successful damaging hit on Godzilla. We actually have a chance at taking this thing down. Wait, is Godzilla glowing? I wonder what that could be for. First smoke, then fire, then a concentrated beam of purple light erupts from Godzilla's mouth and cuts through high-rises like a hot knife through butter, turning one of the world's most densely populated cities into a literal burning hellscape. Well, at least the Prime Minister got out safely. Oh. This scene is incredible, from the way it's carefully staged and shot, building up to what most of us know is coming, but still being able to put those twists in, like Godzilla's bottom jaw horrifically splitting in two before smoke billows out of his mouth only to be concentrated into his true atomic breath. And even having atomic beams shooting out of his back, cause why not? It looks freaking sick. So yeah, it's so good. Honestly, 2 Bubby thumbs up. I gotta. 2. If I had 3 thumbs, I'd give it 3 Bubby thumbs up. All right. In addition, the destruction effects and the shots of Tokyo in flames just left me speechless when I first saw this. Even the music in the background is this tragic Latin opera, the lyrics of which are often interpreted by fans to be from Godzilla's perspective, with lines such as, "If I die in this world, who will know something of me? I am lost, no one knows, there is no trace of my yearning. I wear a void, not even hope, a downward slope is all I see." I think it's safe to say, this guy's not having a good time. Hot take. This song just further drives home how much pain the creature is in. Godzilla stops in its tracks and appears to fall into some kind of deep slumber. The government is in shambles, but this is no time to mourn. Higuchi reunites with his team as they discover Godzilla's cells can seemingly regenerate on their own, allowing for its previous mutations and possible further evolution. One scientist even speculating the possibility for it to grow wings and spread across the world. This strikes paranoia into the US, as they decide that in 2 weeks they'll launch a nuclear strike on Godzilla while it's still dormant in the heart of Tokyo. Which, like, I don't think I need to explain why that's bad, right? The one and only country that was victim to not 1, but 2 nuclear strikes is now forced to take a third for their salvation, in their capital city no less. It just sounds like a sick and twisted joke, doesn't it? Sure, they have enough time to evacuate, so ideally, there should be no casualties, right? But Tokyo is one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of buildings, infrastructure, businesses, homes, and animals will all be eviscerated by the most violent reaction ever conjured by mankind. For the 3rd time. Our friend Higuchi, however, refuses to take that lying down, devising a plan with his team to use a blood coagulant to freeze Godzilla. Many of his fellow congressmen have their doubts, but it's this or complete and utter annihilation. So, Operation Yashiori commences.
Wakey, 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 it's time for school.
They awaken Godzilla by ramming him with bullet trains lined with explosives, as waves of US drones deliver a barrage of missile fire in hopes of draining Godzilla's energy. It still proves to be a difficult foe, but I can bet ya, this thing has not heard of the indomitable human spirit. As controlled explosions topple buildings on top of Godzilla, teams on the ground then begin funneling the coagulant into Godzilla's mouth. It's not down for the count yet though, as Godzilla rises again and cries out one last time as its body completely freezes solid. What follows isn't a roaring applause or cheer, but rather a single sigh of relief and silent contemplation. Kyoko and Higuchi overlook the city on a rooftop, Higuchi expressing hope for the country, despite the circumstances they've been left in. Though Higuchi knows deep down that things are not totally settled, as the camera hangs on Godzilla's frozen body. A panning shot reveals a horrific image of humanoid creatures emerging from Godzilla's tail as if they're crying out in agony. The next step in Godzilla's evolution, assimilation. This is the creature's fifth form. Shin Godzilla is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's honestly amazing in every facet, from its political commentary to its jaw-dropping kaiju sequences, which are able to be some of the best because of the creative risks implemented. Like making Godzilla 100% CG was such a huge risk to take, especially considering this entire franchise was literally built on practical effects. But what made it work, and I think other reimaginings of popular franchises should keep in mind, is that they still held on to the series' roots and took them in stride, being faithful while still taking their own creative liberties. And I think this is why the movie earned 625 million yen on its opening weekend alone, more than tripling the last film, Godzilla Final Wars' opening weekend. The film would go on to be nominated for 10 Japanese Academy Awards, winning 6 of them, including Best Director for Anno and Higuchi, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, and even Best Picture. This movie brought Godzilla back into Japan's pop culture zeitgeist. And if Godzilla 2014 was the spark, then Shin Godzilla and the following Godzilla -1 were the flame to reignite the general public's interest in the franchise. That took too many freaking takes. So, remember when I said I didn't watch anime? But hey, at least I don't watch anime. I watch shows made for Japanese preschoolers. Yeah, I lied. From memory, I've only seen like 3, that being Futopia, the Kamen Rider anime, Dan Da Dan, great show by the way, really good, and Neon Genesis Evangelion. I watched it when I was 12. Deeply scarred, but you know, it is what it is, right? With Shin Godzilla having finished its theatrical run, Anno would very reluctantly go back to finalizing his next project, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time, or as it's also known, Shin Evangelion. Originally announced alongside the previous film, Evangelion 3.0 You Cannot Redo, to be released in 2008. However, after delays on the first 3 films, production on this film would not begin until 2009, now being slated for a 2015 release. After 3.0's less than stellar production and continued delays on the current film, unfortunately led Anno to fall back into depression, which he struggled a lot with in the past, and is actually what inspired a lot of the psychological and introspective parts of the original show. This would cause Anno to delay the film indefinitely, then going on to work on The Wind Rises with Hayao Miyazaki and Shin Godzilla during his recovery. In late 2016, the production would start up again and go very smoothly all the way up until its release in 2018. Yeah, okay, I'm lying again, I'm sorry. Sue me for, I didn't know lying was illegal now. There were quite a few more bumps in the road, with Anno struggling to find the correct ending for each of the characters, or even him having to sue his own original production company, Gainax, for not paying back a loan of some 100 million yen. The film would be set to release in June of 2020, but then, you know, the whole thing kind of happened, and it delayed the film up until its final release in March 8th of 2021. For real this time, okay? I'm being serious. Look, there he is. Okay, so this would be the part where I start reviewing and recapping the movie, but this movie in particular is the very last thing in the whole Eva series, at least for now. So, if you haven't seen Evangelion, please do. It's only 26 episodes and a movie, and 4 more movies, but it is a beautifully animated, excellently written, complex show, and you might not regret it, alright? So in saying that, there's going to be some major spoilers in here, and this review, everything I'm saying in this review is going to sound like nonsense to you. But if you don't want to spend all that time watching it, Evangelion recap time! Oh god! In the not so distant future of 2015, 14-year-old Shinji Ikari is hired by his estranged father Gendo and is pressured into piloting a big robot called an Evangelion, which isn't really a robot. It's kind of like a person with a soul, but it's complicated. He fights for NERV, the organization responsible for the development of the Evas, who are supposedly defending humanity from mysterious entities known as angels. The very first of the angels having caused an apocalyptic catastrophe known as the Second Impact. Throughout the show, our very sad boy Shinji attempts to befriend the other Eva pilots, Rei and Asuka, even amidst his own crippling loneliness and insecurities. And it goes about as well as you'd expect. Shenanigans ensue! Traumatic episodes, mental breakdowns, gay romantic tension, and epic kaiju battles. Oh yeah! Yes! Woo! Towards the end of the series, after defeating the final angel, Gendo initiates his final plan, the Human Instrumentality Project, the merging of all human souls to rid them of their individuality and loneliness. Which is a friggin' load of baloney, what the? Shinji's soul spends the whole last 2 episodes searching for the reason for his existence, getting all existential and crap, until he finally reaches an epiphany and everyone claps. And that's it. That's the end of Evangelion. Oh, what is this? What?
Now it's time.
I watched that when I was 12. It's not a brag, it's just, coping? I don't know. Then there's the rebuild movies, which, if you thought the show was confusing, then honey, you've got a big storm coming. The first one is basically a recap of the first 5 episodes with some very slight differences like Pizza Hut, Doritos. There are more notable differences than that. I just thought the product placement was funny. At first glance, this might seem like just your typical remake, but it's not until the very end where it's hinted at that our characters are stuck in a time loop of sorts. The second film is where things really start to get shaken up, as the film ends with the final angel absorbing Rei, and as a consequence for Shinji trying to save her, the third impact begins, decimating the entirety of the planet. The next movie, 3.0, opens with Asuka and Mari. What's that? Who's Mari? Well, good question. She is pink and girl. Anyways, the two of them retrieve Eva Unit 1 and Shinji wakes up from a 14-year coma. He looks the same age because, plot. All his friends hate him. What else is new? And they're now fighting against NERV as a new organization known as Vile. Shinji runs away and is taken by not Rei. You see, because she's not Rei, she's a clone, but she's a clone without any of her original Rei memories or something. Are you following? Still with me? Good. Okay. Shinji then meets his awesome boyfriend, Kaoru, my favorite character, my boy, my guy, my dude. Wait. I'm sorry, bringing up Kaoru just reminded me. This isn't mine. I've stolen this. I've stolen this plush from my brother, but I've stolen it, and he is going to sit here for the remainder of the video. My guy. Anyways, Shinji gets manipulated by his dad. Again, this time into starting the 4th impact, I think. I don't know, I'm starting to lose count. In order to stop evil dad's evil plans, awesome boyfriend sacrifices himself and dies to save the day. Yippee! And now you're caught up. Oh my god, I think that took like several years off my life. What do you think, Kaoru? He can't talk, he's just a marketable plushie. I'm sorry. To preface, I like this movie a lot, as I do with all the rebuilds. And I understand how divisive they've been since their conception. Whether that's based on the quality of the films themselves, or questioning why we even need this kind of retelling of Evangelion in the first place. So it would be kind of an understatement to say that this film did not have a lot to live up to, being the end to this 14-year-long saga, and being the third, fourth, fifth, hopefully final ending to Evangelion. Without further ado, Shin Evangelion. This movie, right off the bat, is stunningly animated. For the most part, but we'll get to that, we'll get to that. Take this opening action sequence with Mari in Unit 8, for example. Mari swiftly fends off nerve forces using these really cool rotating mechanical arms. The movements are slick, the impacts are punchy, and the CG looks pretty good in my opinion. I'm usually like pretty against CG in anime, because most of the time, it looks pretty bad. And we'll get to that, just give me a second. The grand scale of it all, presented through really well-placed shots and really cool set pieces, like stabbing the big bad guy with the Eiffel Tower. That's so sick. An incredibly well-made fight scene, even if it is a bit unnecessary to the rest of the film. The part of this film that stuck with me the most is the time that we spend at Village 3. After the fourth impact, Asuka, Rei, and Shinji are stranded in the Red Wasteland, until they're picked up and brought to a small village full of survivors from Tokyo 3. The trio are taken in by Kensuke, Toji, and Hikari. They're old classmates, now fully grown adults. And instead of holding hatred towards Shinji for, you know, ending the world, they do their best to try and help him recover from the traumatic events of the previous film. Which, I mean, I don't know of any traumatic events that could have occurred in this previous film. But screw depression, as Rei settles in pretty quickly, working on farms and growing close with the other villagers. Being a clone, she learns a lot about her world, emotions, and other basic concepts she had been deprived of her whole life by Gendo. She interacts and grows a love and appreciation for life without orders. And it's honestly a really beautiful sequence that helps ground the film, which is not common in Evangelion whatsoever. And it's in very much stark contrast to the latter half of the film. And the sheer wholesomeness exuding from the screen easily made Rei my favorite character in this whole movie. And then she dies. Instead of causing Shinji to spiral even further, however, Rei's death actually gives him some drive to go back to Ville, in hopes of atoning for what he's done and possibly save his father. Which, on the one hand, I kind of love the fact that Shinji can use his experience of Rei's death to drive him forward, to move on and save the world. On the other hand though, I can't help but get the feeling that Shinji's kind of become a generic stoic anime protagonist. Just a little bit. Like, it feels a bit out of character. Not saying Shinji isn't allowed to be happy, but this feels a little rushed for me. But I think there's a reason for this sudden change that is important to mention. As I touched on earlier, Hideaki Anno, who wrote Neon Genesis Evangelion in the 90s, was suffering from depression, to the point where the show and its characters, specifically that of Shinji, became a personal reflection of himself. This Hideaki Anno is a different person from today's Hideaki Anno, now able to mostly move on from that dark part of his life, and such is the curse of a self-insert, so does Shinji. Albeit, the only real way to justify this sudden shift in character is to basically be caught up on all the Anno lore and his personal life, which I doubt a lot of the general audiences are. I don't know. Just some of my thoughts and the general sentiment I gathered amongst fans. Shinji, for the first time in his life, actually wants to get in the Eva and fight his dad, to which Misato drops this banger of a line.
父親に息子ができることは肩を叩くか殺してあげることだけよ。
He follows his father with the help of Mari and reactivates Unit 1 to give his dad a mean beating. Oh yeah. The further they descend into this anti-universe, the less they're able to perceive it. So their Evas fill in the blanks with various recognizable locations from the series. And honestly, I'm a sucker for fan service. This is so cool. It really helps the fight like stand out, feel unique, all that. It's really cool. But then we get to this. A lot of people really don't like this mocap CGI, which I get, right? It looks super janky and kind of uncanny, and I really hated it on my first watch through. It honestly really pulled me out of the film. However, upon rewatching, and now having an understanding for Anno's history with tokusatsu, it becomes glaringly obvious that that's what he was trying to emulate. Motion capture was used to make the Evas move more like guys in rubber suits, a technique he started using in Shin Godzilla. The buildings get pushed and flung around like they're miniatures. It even goes as far as Unit 1 getting pushed through a wall, revealing what looks like the outside of a film set. Something I really did not pick up on the first time around, which is disappointing because it's such an awesome detail, even if it still looks a bit weird to me, if I'm being totally honest. Moving on, another thing I wanted to touch on was, what does any of this mean? Gendo's overly expository dialogue simultaneously dumbs down the film a bit too much for my liking, while at the same time making me feel stupid. Listen, Evangelion has never been straightforward. It's always been pretty infamous for being confusing and convoluted with all of its religious techno-babble crap. Neon Genesis had a lot of weird terms like Adam, Lilith, Second Impact, AT Field. A lot of these terms are kind of just thrown onto the viewer in the early episodes of the show, but they provide a sense of mystery and intrigue, never giving the viewer all of the answers, but just enough little crumbs of world building to keep them engaged in the story. But oh my god, what the hell is a Golgotha object? Apparently it's an Ultraman reference. I still haven't seen that much Ultraman, so I didn't know that until I looked it up. So, fun fact. But then you also have Vessels of the Atoms, Evangelion Imaginary, Additional Impact? Sure. In my opinion, it feels like Anno's pulling this out of his ass, like a bit more than usual. And poor, sweet little Gendo, bless his heart, has to explain everything that's going on, and it just comes off as a little bit inorganic. Now, I didn't really want to bring this up, and as much as I don't like comparing things, it kind of goes without saying that this film shares a lot in common with the end of Evangelion. It honestly makes it really hard not to compare the two with all the homages the film makes to the end of Evangelion, and also the fact it is an ending of Evangelion in the form of a film. That being said though, even with all the references and homages, how I see it, I think the film is firmly able to form its own identity, and that is really impressive. And you know, as cool as the lore and metatextual context to this fight scene is, if we're being honest, it doesn't really hold a candle to Asuka versus the mass-produced Evas. The feeling of weight and momentum carried by the excellent 2D animation, cinematography, choreography is really not present in this fight. The awakening of Evangelion Imaginary and the additional impact is supposed to evoke that of the awakening of Lilith and the third impact from End of Evangelion, but it just doesn't hit as hard in my opinion. The big CG hyper-realistic Ray head is very surreal and quite effective at achieving that uncanny valley effect, but at the same time, upon rewatch, once you know it's coming, it becomes kind of funny and very hard to take seriously. To be fair, it's very hard to compete with the sheer iconicness of Shinji's wish and the third impact scene, and just how it caught so many people, myself included, off guard the first time they saw it. This film just has the unfortunate disadvantage of living up to expectations to be that mind-boggling experience that End of Evangelion was. And I think that works to its detriment in most cases, because I think the film is at its strongest when it's at its most human. Continuing on, Shinji wants to learn about his father, why he abandoned him, only to beckon him back to get in that damn robot! Gendo goes full unmasked Scooby-Doo villain and gives his whole life story, and I really enjoyed this part. It's so cathartic to learn about this man who has the equivalent emotional vulnerability to that of a brick wall. It's presented beautifully with plenty of homages to the finale of Neon Genesis. As Shinji and his father learn that they are more alike than they initially thought, Gendo turns around and embraces his son, apologizing for everything he put him through. Shinji then reaches out to make amends with the other Eva pilots, Asuka, Rei, and my boy Kaoru. And it's a really sweet sequence, seeing these characters actually get some kind of happy ending. He then decides to use the newly made Spear of Gaius to erase all Evangelions from the world, rather than a complete reset. Or, as Rei calls it, a Neon Genesis. Yes! Oh yes, that's the name of the I guess it's not the name. It's the name of the show from the 90s! Yes! Woo! Yippee! Woohoo! Following another very pretty looking sequence, we are shown a world that looks not too different from our own. As we see Shinji, all grown up, with the love of his life, canon ship Mari? Mari, the girl he had maybe 2-3 interactions with prior to this? Mari, I'm losing my mind. Huh. Well, I guess she really was just a self-insert for Anno's wife. Doesn't mean I have to be freaking happy about it. What about him? What about... Does he not deserve love? Huh? I'm sorry, little buddy. Maybe in another life. Shinji takes Mari's hand as they run off into the world. A world free from the burden of Evangelion. I wonder if Anno was trying to say something there, but I just can't put my finger on it. Curious. This movie is really weird, but there's only a few things I don't like about it, and that comes with the territory of being compared to one of the greatest animated films of all time. And despite all of that, I still can't help but love it. The action, most of the time, animation, characters, and their really nice send-offs, culminating in a beautiful ending that felt human. It's definitely the best of the rebuilds in my opinion. No, it's not the end of Evangelion 2, nor does it stack up to the sheer iconicness of that original show and movie, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Were these rebuilds necessary? If I'm being honest, hell no. EOE was called the end of Evangelion for a reason, but I don't hate that they exist. They've become their own experience entirely, and I feel very fortunate that I came out of these films, specifically this one, with mostly positive things to say. I truly love Evangelion. All of it. It's one of those things that I will hold dear probably as long as I live. It is just that goated. So if this is the end, I sure hope it is, but this film made so much money. Oh god. I will be very satisfied. Goodbye, all of Evangelion. Except for that McDonald's collab though. Needless to say, that was peak. If it hasn't already been made clear by now, Tokusatsu, specifically Ultraman, has been a huge influence on the work and life of Hideaki Anno. Going as far to say that he wouldn't be doing what he is now without Ultraman. I would be doing something completely different, seeing as it had a significant impact on me. Even in his earliest work, like Return of Ultraman, a college fan film of his. His 2004 adaptation of Cutie Honey also has major Tokusatsu influences. As such, Anno was enthusiastic when initially approached to write a new pitch for an Ultraman movie trilogy, which led him to completing an initial draft in early 2019, involving a reimagining of the original 1966 Ultraman series. Though, because of the troubled production of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, he had to step away from the helm of production, leaving Shinji Higuchi as director. Higuchi himself is also no stranger to Toku, having been around Toho film sets for some of his childhood, and eventually breaking into special effects with 1984's The Return of Godzilla. He then went on to work with Daikon, now Gainax, where he would first collaborate with Anno. Filming of this movie took place throughout 2019, however, post-production was halted due to the the frickin' pandemic, causing a majority of the editing process to take around 2.5 years to complete. After more setbacks and another delay in 2021, the film would finally release on May 13th, 2022. And so, I present to you all Shin Ultraman. What the fuck? Oh, false alarm, guys. It was the right movie. I'm sorry. Scared me a little bit there. Who the fuck is this guy? The movie opens with a montage showcasing a series of kaiju invasions, very reminiscent of the original Ultra Q show, hence our friend Gomez over here looking like a retooled Shin Godzilla model. This led the Japanese government to form the SSSP, the S-Class Species Suppression Protocol. I think I got that right. And we are introduced to its 4 members. Captain Kimio Tamura, physicist Akihisa Taki, biologist Yumi Funaberi, and strategist Shinji Kaminaga. Yes, another protagonist named Shinji. Oh my god. As they are tasked with taking down the electric beast, Neronga. Kaminaga, however, spots a child still left in the village that Neronga is currently leveling. As he steps out to save the kid, a mysterious extraterrestrial falls from the sky, the impact incapacitating Kaminaga. And what emerges from the smoke and dust is the Silver Giant. Ultraman! Ugh. I love Ultraman's design in this film. His first contact design is really neat with it being completely silver, and I love the little details like his face being based off of the first version of the Ultraman mask. But when he goes red, oh, it's sleek, it's modern, yet it's so clearly classic Ultraman, as it was inspired by one of his original designers, Toru Narita's painting, The Incarnation of Truth, Justice, and Beauty, which essentially serves as Narita's original vision for the Ultraman design. Anno wanted to honor that vision by incorporating designs from the painting, as well as the body proportions of the original suit actor Bin Furia into the film. Similar to Shin Godzilla, this is the first fully CG depiction of Ultraman. As I just mentioned, bringing back Furia and even Anno to do mocap work. A lot of the monsters, like Neronga, were also depicted in motion capture. However, to make them move like they did in the original show, they actually CG'd over real suits in some cases. Anyways, this sequence with Neronga looks great. The CG looks really polished and successfully conveys the true scale and power of these titans. Ultraman starts charging up energy and releases it as a powerful beam which quickly dispatches of Noronga. Not long after, with the emergence of another kaiju, Gabara, the SSSP brings on their new hire, Hiroko Asami, to work as an analyst alongside Kaminaga, as a buddy of sorts. As Gabara encroaches on a nuclear waste facility, Kaminaga makes a break for it out into the forest, where he transforms into Ultraman. What follows is a really fun fight, and I love it so much because it calls back to the scrappiness of the original show's choreography. I enjoy the fact that the fights aren't supposed to look super polished or staged, but rather a full-on freaking tussle, especially with the more animalistic and unpredictable kaiju. As he wrestles with Gabara, it becomes clearer to the rest of the Triple SP that Ultraman is trying to protect them. And he also does this funny spin move. I don't know, I just think it's funny. Because of the sheer amount of radiation that Ultraman is absorbing, he starts losing energy and turns to this really nice shade of green. But before Gabara knows it, Ultraman finds an opening and deals the final blow, carrying its body away into the sky, vanishing from the military's radar systems. The film itself is very unique in the way it's structured, almost episodically. Each act has its own story that eventually connects back around to the overall plot, as well as focusing on a different antagonist throughout each act. Almost like a TV show. Higuchi commented on this, saying, "There was a desire to create a content with various episodes coming together, but I didn't want them to feel loosely connected. Each story had to be connected organically." The first episode we've just seen, involving the Triple SP and the rest of the world being introduced to Ultraman as he fights off Noronga and Gabara. But in this episode, we are quickly introduced to Zarab, Earth's second extraterrestrial, in his cute little fedora and trench coat. He explains that he's just here to befriend Japan. Get all buddy-buddy with Mr. Prime Minister over there, you know? Absolutely no political manipulation or backstabbing going on here whatsoever. You just want to be friends. This is until Kaminaga mysteriously vanishes off the face of the earth. Well, more so than he usually does, being a spy and all that. All the while, Ultraman starts wreaking havoc on the city, and Kaminaga's identity gets leaked, all at the same time. Thankfully though, all of these events are not related and could not possibly be linked back to the same alien. Oh. Thanks to some intel and a little note left to her from Kaminaga, Asami is able to track down his location and rescue him, handing him back his beta capsule, allowing him to transform. And what do you know, man, that Ultraman really was a fake. It really was Zarab. Damn. Wow, they really mean it when they say never meet your heroes. I really trusted this guy, man. I could never have seen this coming. Did you see his little hat and trench coat? It was so adorable. Now if I can nitpick a little, the CG in this fight looks a bit less polished than the other fights in the film. It could just be the lighting, letting you see a lot of the imperfections, but it more than makes up for it with some really clever staging and choreography that still makes the fight super entertaining to watch. After successfully splitting Zarab into two, Ultraman flies off into the distance and goes into hiding. A few weeks later, our third episode begins, as Asami has also mysteriously gone AWOL, and oh my goodness, is that a giant woman? Another extraterrestrial, Mephiles, reveals himself along with his beta box, a much less compact version of Ultraman's beta capsule, which he uses to return Asami to normal size. Now back to your regularly scheduled political manipulation. As Mephiles plans to give beta boxes to the government in return for their complete and total subservience. Which, I mean, doesn't sound so bad, like he seems like a nice guy. Well, apparently not. It becomes more obvious that he sees humans as a means to an end, resources to exploit. As he confidently explains to Kaminaga, he was the one who sent the kaiju and Zarab, all in a plot to lure out Ultraman, and to make the humans feel small, both literally and figuratively. Also, he can make them bioweapons. Though in the nick of time, before the beta box is handed over, Ultraman breaks through to stop Mephiles by force. What follows is another really fun action sequence, set to this killer soundtrack. I adore this whole film soundtrack, from the reuse of the original show's score to these new cinematic arrangements and remixes that just hit. Oh my god. And of course, M87 by Kenshi Yonezu, like need I say more? Things are looking dire as Mephiles has Ultraman on the ropes. But before it's too late, Mephiles notices a golden figure observing from afar. The fight abruptly halts. Now realizing his fate if he were to stay on Earth, he informs Ultraman that the Earth is no longer worth killing him over, bidding him farewell, knowing the Earth is doomed. So I'm pretty sure I already put like a big spoiler warning at the beginning of this video, but like, I just want to reiterate, if you want to watch this movie, this next part I'm going to talk about is going to ruin it. If you don't care, just keep watching. But if you do care about spoilers for this, skip to the next section or just click off the video, I don't mind. Just warning you now, alright? This will ruin the movie for you. So you have been warned for like the second time. Kaminaga is standing over what appears to be his own body. The Shinji Kaminaga we've known since the defeat of Naronga hasn't been Shinji at all, but rather Ultraman himself. A really interesting reversal on the show's usual dynamic between human and Ultra. Instead of a person fusing to gain alien superpowers, like the ability to turn giant, or fly, or shoot lasers, rather it's an alien curious about the concept of humanity, choosing to fuse with a human. As we see Ultraman start off very cold and alienating, he slowly develops empathy and a desire to protect others purely for selfless means, all because he saw Kaminaga do the same. The arrival of Ultraman caused a large amount of debris to go flying, killing Kaminaga while he was protecting a child. Ultraman, intrigued as to why someone would risk their own life for another, chose to fuse with Shinji in order to take his place and learn more about humans. The mysterious golden figure from before, known as Zophy, appears before Ultraman to voice his disapproval towards him for deciding to fuse with a human, seeing as it breaks the code of their home planet. Zophy holds concern for the future of humanity, now that it is widely known that they are compatible with the beta system, and opts to completely eradicate them, using the ultimate celestial suppression weapon, Zeton. Ultraman returns to the Triple SP, letting them know what the appearance of Zeton entails, causing Taki to go into a bit of a crisis, knowing that humans could never do anything against such a huge threat like Zeton. And apparently not even Ultraman, as all his attempts to take down Zeton were futile. It's simply too powerful. Despite the imminent, looming threat, life goes on, at least for as long as it can. Taki, however, is more hopeless and pessimistic than ever, but it's Funaberi who snaps him out of it and tells him to hold on to hope, as she shows him what Kaminaga left behind. It's a really nice little moment that helps characterize these two, even if we don't get that much out of them from the rest of the film. They are given the complete inner workings of Ultraman's beta system to work out a last-minute solution to hopefully save mankind. Ultraman wakes up to find his team have formulated a plan. In order to defeat Zeton, Ultraman must use his beta capsule twice to open a 6-dimensional portal to the Planck Brain pocket dimension. He just has to activate it the millisecond before Zeton fires. Sounds easy enough, right? Like, the buddies bid each other farewell, but Kaminaga promises that he will come back. Ultraman launches into space for one last-ditch effort at saving the people who were once much weaker than him. But now he's come to admire them for their wisdom, resilience, courage, and hope. Things that make us pretty uniquely human. The plan is executed perfectly and Zeton is destroyed. But the one caveat was the sacrifice of Ultraman himself as he gets trapped in the Planck Brain. Thankfully, it doesn't take long for Zophy to track Ultraman down, and he actually admires Ultraman for what he and the humans were able to accomplish by taking down Zeton. For violating their planet's code, however, Zophy must take Ultraman back to face the consequences. Despite Ultraman's pleas to stay on Earth and defend it, Zophy simply cannot adhere to his request. So he makes one final wish, to sacrifice his own life in return for Kaminaga's.
ウルトラマン そんなに人間が好きになったのか。
おかえりなさい。
While it is a silly giant kaiju action film on the surface, this film is genuinely so beautiful down to its core themes of hope and human perseverance. I feel like hope has been a common theme throughout all of these movies so far. The hope that humanity can learn to live on with Godzilla, hope from your loved ones that can help drive you forward to being the better version of yourself, and finally placing your hope into others and holding on to it in the face of impossible odds. I love the story and how it evokes the episodic nature of the original show without feeling disjointed. The fight sequences are great and once again are able to pull from their roots while still looking and feeling fresh and exciting. Even if the CG doesn't look as polished as your typical blockbuster. While Kaminaga and by extension Asami by far get the most focus out of the team, Kaminaga's actor, Takumi Saito, notes on the portrayal of his character in the film, saying something along the lines that it was the remarks and interactions with the other SSSP members that gave the character of Kaminaga a genuine presence. Not just his performance alone, but also his supporting cast, to bring our protagonist to life and make him an actually compelling character. The passion and the creativity of Higuchi, Anno, and the rest of the team has still not waned. And you can just feel it exuding through the screen in every action scene, well-written and wonderfully acted character interactions, and intensely cramped camera angles. I still wouldn't fully consider myself an Ultraman fan, because I've only seen like a season and a half. I started watching Tiger recently with some friends. I'm traumatized, but that's besides the point. This was essentially my first full exposure to the Ultra series. And what better place to start than a reimagining of the original? And it continues what I love about all these films, is that the shared Shin title doesn't imply that they're direct sequels to one another, nor do they have some sort of shared universe, but are instead connected metatextually. Big word, I know. Through their themes and our real world. This reboot of Ultraman is not an isolated project. It's the culmination of the cultural impact that Shin Godzilla left on the Japanese audience, as well as decades of dedicated fanboyism and an admiration for tokusatsu as a whole. During the production of Evangelion 3.0, Anno had grown close to a producer from Toei, and it was in 2016 where he first brought up the idea of writing and directing another reimagining of a classic tokusatsu, that being the original 1971 Kamen Rider series, to be a part of the Shin series of films. Once the project was approved, it was set to release on the franchise's 50th anniversary in 2021, but I mean, as we all know by this point, the whole thing kind of happened and all that, and as such, the project was delayed. Filming would begin in October of 2021, and it would actually be the first of these films to not involve Higuchi in production. Rather, it would be Anno at the writing and directing helm for the final film in the Shin series. Let's do it one more time, baby! Shin Kamen Rider. Oh yeah! The film opens with a motorcycle chase. We see a mysterious man and woman on the motorcycle when suddenly they get exploded off the freaking mountain. The woman falls to the floor as mysterious masked individuals attempt to capture and kill her. That is until another masked man appears and starts turning people into fine red mist. Oh god. My jaw dropped when I first saw this. It's a really cool, high-octane opening fight scene, but Kamen Rider is a kid's show at heart, so going into this, I was not expecting to see this much blood. It's not a bad thing per se, just really shocking. Like, that's gonna hurt in the morning.
Oh, brother!
We are introduced to Takeshi Hongo, a motorcyclist who was kidnapped by the evil organization known as Shocker and turned into an augment, a genetically modified cybernetic superhuman created for Shocker's ultimate goal of world domination. The one who modified him, Hiroshi Midorikawa and his daughter Ruriko, defected and helped Takeshi escape Shocker. Midorikawa bestowed upon him the power to protect, using what is known as prana. In his words, it's an omnipresent source of energy that resides in the bodies of all living creatures. So if you know Star Wars, it's like the Force, but without like the telekinesis. And it's like Japanese, I don't know. Basically, it's how all the augments get their energy. I'm bringing it up now because they bring it up a lot in this film. Got it? Good. Ruriko gives Takeshi a red scarf because according to her, it's an essential for any motorcyclist. Suddenly though, Takeshi notices a rather unusual looking spider. Spider Org infiltrates and kills Midorikawa. However, not before he can tell Takeshi one last thing. Spider Org's orders were to capture Ruriko and bring her in alive. Thankfully for Takeshi though, he may have been cursed with these murderous powers, but at least he gets an epic freaking motorcycle. Oh yeah! This scene is accompanied by a killer song by Lotus Juice, and if anything, this whole soundtrack is once again loaded with bangers. It's got your typical new arrangement of the classic TV show theme song, Let's Go Rider Kick, but during production, Anno asked the film's composer, Taku Iwasaki, if he can be a bit bolder with the soundtrack and give it more range. I think it's because of this that you can actually hear the original song's melody sprinkled throughout the film's tracks as a sort of leitmotif. It really helps give the movie this classic flavor, while the new arrangements capture the intense and breakneck, literally, nature of the film. Takeshi catches up to and confronts Spider Org. Inspired by Ruriko, he calls himself Rider. Kamen Rider. That's like the name of the freaking movie, oh my gosh. And how else can you solve your differences but by punching and kicking each other in the face? What follows is a fight scene that reeks of Anno's directing. Rapid cuts and tight camera angles galore. His love and adoration for the original really shows throughout a lot of the sequences in this film. Going out of his way to film at a lot of the same locations and even using a lot of classic tokusatsu filming techniques. Because Anno is such a huge freaking nerd, like I can say anything, but oh well, he aimed to make a completely faithful remake of the original Kamen Rider series. For better or worse, he really strived for perfection, trying to make it as accurate to the original as possible. In some cases, even butting heads with Toei's stunt team. His directing style has been noted as being very particular and demanding, while at the same time also being pretty vague and improvisational, which on screen, I really love. But in production, oh my, I could not imagine dealing with him and these meticulous recomps, retakes, reshoots. But don't you worry, we'll get into that a bit later on. After a heated struggle, Takeshi delivers his finishing blow to Spider Org. A big freaking kick. Afterwards, Ruriko and Takeshi have a brief heart-to-heart before heading to a safe house, where they're intercepted by two agents, Tobe Tachibana and Jiro Taki, who might look familiar, huh? The latter of which also played our boy Shinji Kaminaga in the last movie. The Shin films are no strangers to having recurring actors. In fact, there's quite a few who have had multiple roles across the live-action films. I don't have much else to add, I just thought it was kinda neat. The two have been tasked with cleaning up Shocker's mess, and they need Ruriko and Takeshi's help to do so. Ruriko lets them in on the history of Shocker. That being a billionaire who invested in an AI that can cure sadness? Not necessarily, but both parts of it, I and K, were left with a final instruction from their founder to lead all of mankind to happiness. Now, to what is essentially a robot with no emotions, you can kind of see how the message may have gotten construed so naturally. Kei starts an underground organization that kills and abducts people and hires some weirdos that have some really strange ideas of what happiness is. What a lovely bunch. Speaking of weirdos, Nuriko and Takeshi are given their next target, one of Shocker's head scientists, Bat Augment. Because of Takeshi's self-doubt, Nuriko decides to go in alone. But things don't go to plan as she gets captured and this happens. Whatever this is. Takeshi arrives in the nick of time as Bat Org starts yapping about epidemics and how he's gonna release his bat virus onto the world. Huh. Hitting a bit too close to home there, hey Anno? Jeez. However, this was all according to plan all along. Nuriko outsmarts Bat Org and our resident Kamen Rider kicks him into the dirt. Cut to Scorpion Augment as she's taking out these SWAT guys, straight up slaughtering them left and right. Oh my goodness, she's looking to be our dear Kamen Rider's toughest adversary yet. I have no idea how he's gonna defeat her. Oh my goodness. Oh, brutal. That's gonna hurt in the morning. Moving on, you'll start to notice that the structure of this movie is very similar to that of the last one, with each section almost being like an episode of a TV show, each one focusing on a different monster of the week. Though while the sections of Shin Ultraman felt pretty distinct from one another, the acts in this movie tie and flow a little bit more seamlessly into one story, in my opinion. Our gang's next target is Wasp Augment, Nuriko's childhood best friend she met growing up in the organization. She plans to utilize her power to turn the world into a brainwashed hive mind, to realize her own strange idea of happiness. Takeshi squares up with her, and you know what they say, don't bring your sword to a fist fight. I don't know. And we are treated to another sick fight scene. My only major gripe with it being I wish it was more practical, in the way that 2/3 of it is mostly CGI. And while I can appreciate the spectacle of them fighting at super speed, the low budget CGI itself definitely leaves a bit to be desired, personally. But put a little pin in that. We'll get back to it later, alright? The first half of this fight is all the more impressive, considering that Takeshi's actor, Sosuke Ikamatsu, had actually broken his leg while filming motorcycle stunts a few months prior, and was still very sore throughout a lot of the filming. And from what I know, he actually does a lot of his own stunts in this film, outside of the opening few fights of course, where he was literally physically unable to. What's crazy about all this though, is how this situation so closely mirrors that of Hiroshi Fujioka, the original Takeshi Hongo. Originally, he did all of his own stunts. They didn't use too many suit actors or stunt doubles at the time. So to cut a long story short, he also ended up breaking his leg while filming bike stunts for the show. That is just one of those coincidences that you honestly cannot make up. Takeshi goes to deliver the rider kick, but spares Wasp Org, knowing it's what Ruriko would want. Which is really sweet. Until she gets shot by one of the agents, like, come on! The two get settled into their new hideout, where Ruriko soon learns that her brother Ichiro, aka Butterfly Augment, has awakened. He plans to steal all of humanity's prana in order to send their souls to the Habitat Realm. Essentially a purgatory, where, as Ruriko explains, is a place where something I only just realized is how much this plan of his really echoes that of Gendo Ikari's human instrumentality project from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Similar to how Gendo lost his wife, we learn that Ichiro's mother was randomly murdered when he was a child. It's because of this that he very quickly spiraled into loneliness and a general distrust towards other people for most of his life. As such, he and Ruriko wrote some code utilizing prana in order to send people's souls to the habitat. Her initial idea was so to help people better understand each other, but she quickly realized that this was not her idea of happiness. Ichiro, however, was hell-bent on the idea that when people's souls are sent to the habitat, no one can hide behind false personas. No lying means you can trust anyone. Everyone can be friends. no more loneliness. Right? I think it's really neat that Anno adapted his earlier work for this movie. That, or he's just running out of ideas. But Ichiro is different from Gendo in the way that he feels he's doing humanity a service by sending them to the habitat realm. Meanwhile, Gendo does what he does for mostly selfish reasons, mainly to reunite with his wife, Yui. Getting back on track, after a failed attempt at taking down Ichiro and the habitat realm, he introduces his newest creation, Hayato Ichimonji, otherwise known as the second grasshopper augment. Takeshi tries to escape with Ruriko, but Hayato is right on their tail. The two start to duke it out, as we see Hayato's personality and sense of humor shining through his shocker brainwashing. And we get another CGI fight scene. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a really sick fight scene, but I just wish they shot some of it in camera. Takeshi does not want to hurt Hayato, but holding back was his biggest mistake, as Hayato deals a critical blow, breaking Takeshi's leg. Now, where have I heard this before? Sounds familiar. Before Hayato can finish him off, Nuriko figures out a way to reverse his brainwashing by manipulating his prana or something. I don't know. She unlocks all of his darkest memories that Shocker had locked away for the sake of his happiness, and all he can do in response is cry. Nuriko ties a red scarf around his neck and asks him to become a rider. And all's well that ends well, right? Now that we have two Kamen Riders, we can take down Shocker in no time. Oh yeah! Oh. Well, no one's allowed to be happy for too long, I guess. Yeah. Ruriko gets stabbed by the new KK augment, of whom Hayato rightfully beats the snot out of. Takeshi, however, is helpless in trying to save her. She transmits her final will into his mask as she fades into sea foam. In her will, she thanks Takeshi for all he's done, protecting her, or even just being by her side, being someone who genuinely cared about her. It meant a lot, and we see that through her actual, genuine smile. She grew up wanting the family that her brother had, and felt isolated because she couldn't. But unlike her brother, she moved on and eventually found someone she could trust, and that helped her find the actual meaning of happiness. One thing I really love about Anno's films is that he really knows how to use silence effectively and the power it can hold on the viewer. The silent moments with the characters really help the audience peek into their emotions and gain an appreciation for the smaller, finer details of a shot or scene. I think that's perfectly showcased in this scene of Takeshi just crying. It could have so easily had this sad orchestra swelling in the background. The choice to leave it quiet with just the sound of his sobbing really helps to emphasize his level of grief and isolation at this point in the story. Anno also really loves to hold on to shots. It was initially a budget-saving technique from Evangelion, so they didn't have to draw as much. And it's actually ended up bleeding over into his other work. And what better shots to hold on than these beautiful shots of the sunset that just all provide for one giant emotional gut punch. Scratch that, emotional rider kick. I'm sorry, not the time. We're grieving, not the time, I'm sorry. We see throughout the film, time and time again, Takeshi is far too kind a person for his destructive powers. Every life he takes has him going into a downward spiral, questioning whether any of the violence and bloodshed is worth it at all. We learn he got that from his father, who was a cop who died trying to save a hostage. Takeshi notes that only the strong can protect the ones they love. If he was strong enough, then maybe his father wouldn't have died that day. But even as Takeshi's father laid there bleeding out, the only thing he was worried about was the hostage and the perpetrator, and if they were safe. He too was too kind of a person for his own good. Takeshi wants to be as compassionate as his father, and use his strength to protect others who aren't as strong. So, he finds his resolve in carrying on Nuriko's will and taking her brother down.
ありがとう。そうですね。
Takeshi pulls up at Ichiro's base, only to find another 11 grasshopper augments staring him down. Another motorcycle chase ensues, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, but like, this is so sick. The way that the plague-type grasshopper orgs bob and weave all in sync really makes them feel like an unrelenting swarm of locusts. While it isn't done practically, this scene I give a pass because of the crazy choreography, and I don't really know how you do all that crazy stuff practically. So I think this is a case where the CG enhances the scene they were trying to make, which is higher praise than I have to say for the next part of the fight. Hayato quite literally swoops in to save Takeshi. Inspired by Ruriko, they decide to squash their beef, and Hayato takes up the mantle of the second Kamen Rider. Now, this is a hype moment and all, but what follows is the darkest fight scene in cinematic history. Literally. Like, can you tell what's going on here? Oh, my monitor's turned off. I'm being hyperbolic, of course. And while it does use a little less CG than the other fights, there is just some really shoddy looking green screen in the practical shots. And despite the flashy choreography, the setting being so dark makes it a lot less visually interesting in my opinion. It sucks even more watching the deleted scenes, seeing that they actually filmed this fight scene in a different location in camera. And in my opinion, it looks miles better. The lighting, cinematography, choreography, everything. And most importantly, I think it looks and feels more faithful to the original show. More so than these fully computer generated sequences that, in all honesty, feel pretty weightless. Especially when compared to actual stunt performers doing the stunts, the fighting, the falls. An integral piece of that classic tokusatsu charm that I think gets lost after the first few fights of the film. At the end of the day, I think this all boils down to Hideaki Anno's crippling perfectionism. It's one of the many reasons Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 took so long to be finished. Anno would constantly make revisions to the script or ask his crew to redo entire scenes of animation. He even rewrote the first 30 minutes of the film around 40 times, even at one point considering scrapping 9 months worth of work on the film. So I feel like that it's more likely than not these fight scenes that they shot just didn't turn out exactly as he imagined, which I think is kind of losing the spirit of tokusatsu in a way. And that's really strange for Anno considering how big of a toku head he is. But from what I've learnt of him, when he's creating and has a vision for something, it's a very specific vision that he feels he has to get right or the film is a bust. In the realm of animation, specifically 3D animation, which this film does use, it's a lot easier to change the blocking of the characters or how a shot's composed, for example. But when you're filming in live action and you want something in the scene itself changed, that's when you have to go through reshoots, which this film did, or also what Anno opted for, recreating a lot of the fight scenes in CG. Though I think with something so complicated, with so many variables like a fight scene does, you've got to expect things to not go exactly how you thought it would, because Lord knows things probably didn't 100% of the time when they were filming the show 50 years ago. Takeshi and Hayato confront Ichiro, and just as they think they've got the upper hand on him, Ichiro transforms into Kamen Rider number 0. And proceeds to wipe the floor with the two of them. Their one shot at winning is to take off his mask. And this fight scene is basically everything I've been asking for. Sure, the background visuals are dark and grey and not very interesting, but the fight itself is great. It's practical for one. And I love how the choreography slowly devolves and becomes scrappier as you really start to feel the desperation through the characters' movements and how they tackle each other to the ground. Ichiro has Takeshi pinned until Hayato delivers a killer headbutt, splitting both their helmets. Takeshi places the helmet on Ichiro's head as he reunites and reconciles with what appears to be Ruriko's soul, made up from the prana she transmitted into the helmet. They hug it out, and now is truly all's well that ends well. Oh shit. Takeshi and Ichiro exerted too much of their prana while fighting, causing the two of them to die.
なんだよ。また一人かよ。
Leaving Hayato alone again. Also, he thought the agents returned to him, saying it was Takeshi's wish for him to take his mask and keep fighting as the Kamen Rider. But he's not fighting alone. Similar to Ruriko, Takeshi embedded the last of his prana into the mask, allowing his soul to live on. This film is really special to me, and despite all my complaints and rants, I still can't help but love it despite its flaws. It was my first ever foreign theatre experience as well. I was able to catch it while I was on a trip to Japan, and even though I had no idea what was going on, it was genuinely amazing to see in the cinemas. And as much as I like to nitpick Anno's production, the way his visual style comes out in the film overall is excellent and dynamic. It really kept me engaged despite the whole language barrier. The art direction as well is also amazing. All of the augment designs are really clever and sleek reinterpretations of the original monsters. And I really love how they kept the Kamen Riders very close to their original designs, with just a few little modern touch-ups here and there. And most importantly, these damn trench coats, like that'll never not be cool. Like that, tell me that's not the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. Tell me right now, I'm waiting. And it would not be a film by Anno without being at least a little depressing, especially considering he tried to adapt the darker tone of the early episodes of the show and the manga. The themes of loneliness are ever present throughout the film and pretty much all of its characters. Takeshi, Ruriko, and Hayato all bring up how isolated they felt before meeting each other, and that plays heavily into their motivations and the decisions each of them take to fight together. This of course also even goes for our main villain Ichiro. Themes of finding true happiness are also prevalent throughout. Each of the augments have their own kind of messed up idea of happiness, except KK Aug. I think he kinda just wanted to stab people. Whatever makes you happy, I guess. And yet, despite all of that, each of our main characters were able to break through and discover their own happiness. Ruriko found that in Takeshi, caring for her and treating her like the family she never had. And vice versa. Takeshi finding his happiness in Ruriko, who showed him that he has the power to protect others and bring them joy. Hayato is pushed forward and motivated by the other two into being the best version of himself, and to follow in Takeshi's footsteps of being a hero who protects the happiness of others. Well, that's the fourth movie down. Thank you, Anno, for yet another enthralling cinematic experience that I will most definitely cherish for many years to come. Oh, whoa, I didn't see you there. Just kidding, I did. You're a camera and a tripod. I'm sorry. I did see you there. I lied. Oh, wait, what? What's that? Something looks different. Well, I have been changing my shirt throughout each section of the video. Thank you for noticing. I appreciate that. Anyways, what have we learned? It's the end of the video now, in case you couldn't tell. I love all these movies, even if I complain and nitpick them a ton. You can see on my Letterboxd, aka the unemployment app, that I've rated all these movies 4.5, even 5 out of 5 stars. If you can't see the flaws in the media you love, what's the point of consuming it in the first place, right? I hold a certain appreciation for these movies, like I do, say, the Star Wars prequels. Now, granted, I do think these movies are miles better than the prequels, but regardless of your opinion on those movies, you can't deny that George Lucas didn't have an artistic vision going in, that he stuck to and went with. For better or for worse, your choice. But that's exactly what Anno and Higuchi did with the Shin series. They had a very specific artistic vision for each film, and most if not all of it was able to be fully realized in the final products. And it shows us each film being uniquely in their style of filmmaking. It certainly beats what Hollywood is up to now with their biggest movies. Instead of the film being made up of the ideas of one, or even a group of people, the ideas get run through executive after executive, board meeting after board meeting, so on and so forth. A lot of films nowadays start to lose the plot, quite literally in some cases. And so many movies come out, not always terrible, but just safe. Like a corporate-made microwave meal, if that makes any sense. So, thank you, Shinji Higuchi, Hideaki Anno, and the rest of the teams of incredibly talented people who work tirelessly to bring their visions to life. These movies I think will always be some of my favorites, and I'm very excited to see what they make in the future. Because, in light of recent events, Toho have announced that they are planning for a potential Shin Godzilla sequel. While this was a while ago, they also added extra scenes to the TV cut of Shin Kamen Rider, of Hayato fighting Shocker. So all of these movies, except for Evangelion, have a lot of sequel potential, and they all did really well, so yeah, they may not be standalone for too much longer. They also sold a crap ton of merch too. They even made a combining Sentai Robo toy. They even made it into a completely new suit just for the commercial. Like, what? Huh? It's really awesome, but like, what? So, if you've stuck around this long, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for watching. If you have anything to add, any corrections for me, please leave them in the comments. I genuinely appreciate it when people correct me because I am very stupid and the last thing I want to be doing is spreading misinformation. But seriously, if you somehow made it through this whole video, it means so much. And a few times I considered scrapping it or doing a shortened version, but I pulled an Anno and I stuck to my original vision for the video. There's this quote from Higuchi talking about Anno once he finished the original run of Neon Genesis Evangelion. He mentioned being okay with dying after he finished it, because he would have made something that would have an impact on people. Now, I'm not saying I'm all good with dying, because I like to think I've got a lot of life left in me, nor am I saying my silly YouTube videos as emotionally impactful as Ava, but it's the part about making an impact that really gets me. The idea that these films and TV shows impacted me enough to create my own videos, then those videos stirred something in even just one other person, let alone many more, just kind of goes to show the power you have when you put your energy into something creative and share it with others. We need a lot more creativity in the world, I think. Jeez, I did not expect to get deep on a video about silly giant monsters, robots, and superheroes, but here we are. Go out and create something so you too can have a multi-hour video essay made on your work. Anyways, go get a job.
Next time on Bubby Tompkins, Bubby falls into a friggin' ditch and friggin' dies because he spent a whole friggin' year of his life making one friggin' video that's already gotten copyright claim, but I guess that's my bad for putting copyrighted music in. But it is what it is, right? Anyways, subscribe.